And we're going to start diving right into some evidence and some casework. I have a lot of questions about Xana and Ethan. I don't really know where to get started, so I'm going to start with the clip from Chaos Sector, and then I'm going to add to, again, I'm trying to bring up current things that I've been hearing in a lot of live streams lately. So let me get Chaos Sector up here.
As we now know, well, we knew, but had an examining error, that Kernodle was on the second floor. This means the activity on that floor is magnified even more. What do I mean? Let's break it down. Mortensen claimed to have heard someone state, "There's someone here." Now, this would be Kernodle. But it was assumed to be Gonzalez, from Mortensen's accounts, right? Interesting. Huh. Let's see. That's a bit odd, now that we look back at the original airing of that episode. If you recall, I broke down how it made more sense that it would be Gonzalez because I assumed she was on the second floor with Mortensen, right? But Mortensen claimed she thought it was Gonzalez who made the statement, who she knew was on the third floor, right? What am I getting at here? Something that could be damaging to her accounts of what happened, that's what. Stay with me. I believe Mortensen suggested it was Gonzalez, who was on the third floor, that made the statement, "There's someone here," because it draws attention to the third floor, as opposed to the actual floor that the statement was made from, which was the floor she was on. When Kernodle is heard crying by Mortensen, they are both on the same floor. But before she is heard crying, there is no information about what activity was taking place in between that time. Kernodle's concern of a home invader apparently didn't lead to any communication, other than just stating, "There's someone here?" She isn't heard saying anything else. Meaning, there is a moment of silence on the second floor, from the time she made that statement, to the point she is heard crying? Obviously there was no emergency text being exchanged with the peers, and of course no call to the authorities. Speaking of the authorities, they did a forensic scan of Kernodle's phone, and discovered she was on TikTok around 4 a.m., right? Well, apparently there is no evidence that she became aware of an intruder while on TikTok, so we have to assume she was notifying her boyfriend. I mean, who else would she be talking to? We have to keep addressing that, because it changes the setting in the home, leading up to the attacks. But nevertheless, this span of alleged inactivity has to have more, well, activity. Based on the report, Mortensen often opened her door, which means she also often closed her door. When she heard someone state, "There's someone here," she opened her door, then closed it. Then opened it again, and heard Kernodle crying. Then, closed the door again, opened it once more, then heard Kernodle crying once more? Why does she constantly open and close her door? If you suggest she was scared, concerned, paranoid, whatever state of awareness, this would lead to calling the authorities. Or at least, inquiring about your roommates. Based on her accounts, she woke up around 4 a.m. and heard what she assumed to be Gonzalez on the third floor, playing with her dog. Kernodle is also awake around this time. Soon after, Mortensen claims to have heard what she, quote, thought was Gonzalez state, "There's someone here." Mortensen told police that she did not see anything when she looked out of her bedroom for the first time after hearing the voice. Interesting, when she looked out of her bedroom for the first time after hearing the voice. So Mortensen looked out of the bedroom after hearing that statement, "There's someone here." Why would Mortensen assume it was Gonzalez making that statement? How could Mortensen even hear Gonzalez make that statement, which would obviously be very cautionary? Unless she heard that statement through her ceiling, how could she have heard that statement? It's possible to hear someone talking on a floor above you, but since the roommate is aware of a home invader, she couldn't have been talking loud enough for Mortensen to hear her one floor down. Especially if we go with the narrative that somehow this is some sort of thought to self, right? I mean, pick your poison here. Either they were literally speaking to themselves, which in most cases is considered a quote, inside voice. Or, they were speaking to someone else. This has to be clarified, because it determines who was awake, what decisions they made regarding an intruder, and what Mortensen's interaction would be in eventually being notified about this intruder as well. Come on, this needed to be clarified, but it wasn't. If Gonzalez was talking to Mogan, we can assume she would damn near be whispering to Mogan, right? Which we know Mortensen definitely couldn't hear with her door closed. Remember, her door was closed when the statement was made, then after hearing that statement, she opened her door. These are just questions that are questioning the accounts of what led up to the murders. Another mystery, how could Gonzalez become aware of a home intruder before Mortensen did? We assume she became aware based on observation. The only way she would know there is a stranger in the home would be to physically spot them or have her door open to hear the intruder. Yet, how did the intruder travel through the second floor without being detected by either strange sounds or movement by Mortensen or Kernodle, who was also awake during this time frame? Simply put, someone on the third floor became aware of an intruder before individuals on the second floor did. This is highly unlikely unless those on the second floor were, well, sleep. But bingo, Mortensen and Kernodle were not sleep. Keep in mind, the second floor is where the suspect entered the home. This is all broken down based on the claim that it was Gonzalez who made the statement. Taking very meticulous steps through this, I hand the rest of the report over to my colleague.
Thanks. Let me touch on a few key aspects. It is likely here that Mortensen suggested it was Gonzalez instead of Kernodle due to proximity.
Okay, I just want to pause because I just think some of these points are just so exceptional I want to bring up. So DM says she's not sure who said there's someone here. She assumed it was Kaylee. But the confusion lies where she thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs. So the sound quality is so poor, she couldn't tell the difference between the attack and playing with the dog. So the thought that somebody spoke, there's someone here, which would have been a quieter statement, is not likely. She would have heard it on the third floor, Chaos Sector points out. So it would very likely be Xana's voice saying that. Another thing, Yvonne asked us, I think that the killer ordered the Jack in the Box because Ian X ate pizza at midnight. That's what X's dad said. They were home eating pizza. Why order food at 4 a.m.? A lot of people have said this too. That is definitely something that's something they're going to find out in the autopsy for sure. I've really thought on this Jack in the Box order. It's kind of it'd be very hard to orchestrate a crime and pretend that you are a DoorDash driver through their app, simply for there's so many aspects of tracking and keeping track of the driver to make sure that they're not stopping in between things, not going places. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. There was a time where I was thinking that the person who perpetrated this crime was the DoorDash driver, but after really researching it, there would be so many obstacles, and I don't know, but I'd love to know what you guys think. I'd love to know your insight. You can't beat the internet. So anything that I say, I'm just wanting you guys to build off of. But my feeling is a DoorDash driver would be a very hard thing to orchestrate.
After this live stream aired, I had some interesting questions left in the comments section. Let me just read them to you. Why is the DoorDash delivery time in the PCA approximate? Why don't they tell us the DoorDash driver is a witness who gave a statement? Why did the police subpoena the DoorDash driver for their records of deliveries to that address going back months? These are really good questions.
The other thing we were talking about was TikTok. So Chaos Sector brought up that TikTok use at 4:15 would have been to contact her boyfriend. One thing that Drip Drop or Crime Circus Colt has brought up to all of us and reminded us, he has a great short. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but you can go to Crime Circuits Colt and watch his short on it. TikTok is a pretty invasive app, and it actually can turn itself on and do its own activity when you're not on the app. Even when the app is asleep, it can wake itself up. It can have activity on videos. I don't know how it all works, but you forego some of those rights when you sign up for that app, that they have control and access of your phone. So we can't even go off of the TikTok necessarily, depending on what it was she did on TikTok. I think before I press play, I'll tell you what lingers in my head. And I'm going to play a clip of Ethan and of Ethan's parents in a moment, a very old clip that they did on November 15th of last year, right after. I don't understand. They were awake when this happened, as far as we can tell. I don't understand if the cell phones were working, if there wasn't a cell phone or a signal jammer going on. How is it that nobody called 911? I've just never understood that. And a lot of people say, this is just, this type of unaliving is brutal and quick, and they wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily have time, but I just don't understand, so it begs the question, was there some other weapon used? Even if it was like, dare I say, speculate here and say something like chloroform, or I don't know, a stun gun or something like that. See if we have any questions. Yeah. Okay, so the Blackthorn says, if the video stream timer is on and the phone is open to TikTok, it will continue to play endlessly. The other thing I want to bring up is my husband does casual research on this case, and his research told him that Jack in the Box at that particular location stopped serving at 3 a.m. I'm not confirmed. That's actually a good point. However, I don't believe the signal jammer theory necessarily, unless it was getting turned on and turned off, because don't forget, Dylan officially stated, and it's part of our evidence, that they were texting each other, Bethany and Dylan, during this time, and texting the other roommates and not getting replies. I don't know if a signal jammer would like hold on to the text and then release it when, I don't know how that all works, but I don't know how they could text each other, or maybe this is part of the case we just don't know about. I know. But also, and we're going to talk about the target in a second. I've heard from Jules, the Jules of all trade. I listened to her show one time, and she said something interesting that stuck with me, which is those injuries could be because of rage and she was the target, or rage because Maddie was the target and Kaylee interrupted what he was doing. So it could mean different things. Okay, the drive-thru is open 34 hours. I know what you mean. Okay, that's good to know, Jennifer. And again, I shouldn't be bringing up things that I mean, I guess we could Google it real quick. We just have a lot going on. I heard that the Jack in the Box in Moscow was closed, but the Pullman wasn't. The Pullman was the one that he had heard about. We'll get some better intel on that. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit more, and then we're going to jump right to Ethan. We're going to jump right to Jim and Stacy Chapin.
The further away the statement was made, or a better term, was heard, the less awareness she would have. Here's why: because she closed her door, which indicates, in a subjective approach, that Mortensen may have not been as concerned about that statement. It could be considered, quote, indifferent. But when she heard cries, and the suspect's voice, this is when Mortensen became concerned. The intruder entered the home through the second floor. In this setting, he would be snooping around, footsteps would be heard, strange noises, heck, even his frequency could be picked up, while he walked through the home. Yes, you can detect someone, without physically seeing them. Since it was Kernodle who became aware of this intruder, this demands more concern from Mortensen on that same floor. Gonsalves would not be aware of a home intruder, before someone on the second floor. It's just common sense. The suspect would walk up a small hill, and enter the home through the sliding doors. Keep in mind, the authorities claim there was not, I repeat, was not, forced entry. Let's examine the home from the view of each victim's location. Based on this 3D layout of the home, Kernodle and Chapin are to the left side of the entrance. As displayed, it shows that Kernodle and Chapin were murdered first, then Gonsalves and Mogan. If we examine this layout, and the path the killer took, we see what was reported to have taken place that night in chronological order. Number 1, killer quietly breaks into home around 4 a.m. Number 2, murderer fatally stabs Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin to death. Number 3, killer also butchers Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan to death, in Mogan's bed. Number 4, surviving housemate Dylan Mortensen sees masked man, in the corridor between floors, who walked past her. Number 5, Mortensen tells police the man slipped out the back sliding glass doors, and fled around 4:25 a.m. Approximately, it took about 20 minutes, for the suspect to kill 4 people, which some put up a struggle. Perhaps with a gun, as one bullet could end one's life instantly. But with a knife, it takes hard work to physically stab someone to death, let alone 4 of them. Remember, some of the victims put up a fight, so even if this is one victim, this would take some time. Multiple stab wounds does not mean someone will die neither, which also brings into question, did those victims die based on multiple stab wounds? You know what, let's address that for a moment. I have no filter, so I will point this out. Autopsy reports state the victims died from stab wounds, but they don't detail where those stab wounds were. Usually, when there are homicides, especially with weapon-based fatalities, autopsies detail everything regarding the weapon used. For example, such as a death from stabbings, the autopsy report will detail where those stab wounds were located on the victim, such as on the neck, chest, arms, head, wherever they were stabbed, right?
I'm going to stop right there because I want to add something to what they're saying. One other thing that the autopsy will show, which I don't hear a lot of people talking about, is and where I got this information was True Crime Web. He's a former forensics detective. And what he said is that it's not necessarily the shape of the stab wound or the cut. I mean, those all tell different things, but what really gives away what was used as the weapon is the fragments, the forensic fragments of metal that are left behind. It's inevitable. You can't escape that. And that metal will have its own fingerprint. So you're going to know where it came from, what batch. I mean, potentially they might even know what like store or at least what company it was sold from, simply by having that fingerprint of the metal that was in there. Let's hope that was done. Because if it wasn't, 3, and again, trigger warning, 3 of these bodies were cremated. So let me just keep going.
No details of this. If they died from stab wounds, as they were found in their bedrooms, surely they would literally bleed to death, right? But let's be very careful here. If they are left bleeding to death, there is no doubt, I repeat, there is absolutely no doubt, those victims tried to survive with their last moments of life. And it's not just one victim, there are 4. Young people who have more willpower to live, more willpower to fight back. Even if they couldn't physically fight back to make a difference in their demise, surely they fought to stay alive, before that last heartbeat. There should be trails of blood on the floor, from where they were initially stabbed, to the point where they finally collapsed and passed away. Or blood on the door handle, the night post, the floor, at the edge of the bed, or the window. Areas where the victims physically would attempt to reach, fighting to stay alive. Keep in mind, the killer didn't slit their throats while they slept, negative. In that scenario, it is more likely that he could, quote, kill them while they slept, as the report claims. That's not how it played out, based on the same reports stating some of them had defensive wounds. There was physical engagement involved. Maybe not with all of them, but 2 of the 4 victims were obviously awake, which brings me back to an initial point. About them notifying their roommates. We are going in circles here. Logic, something that will never change, despite whatever scenario we face in life. But apparently, this does not exist, based on the so-called forensics of the detectives. Now, what this is indicating to me, and I'm pretty sure you have the same hunch, is that perhaps they did not die from being stabbed. Or, they were never stabbed to begin with. Perhaps.
I love Chaos Sector, but you have to also understand that these are investigative journalists. So to put into context, sometimes they start coming out with theories in their videos. They're not necessarily evidence-based. They're speculating what it could mean, what evidence could indicate towards. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to hear from Stacy and Jim Chapin, because there's always question about where Ethan was found. There is lots of question about where the bodies were when the police initially came, or when the friends came over in the morning. And I think that this is the one place where we get clarification before the gag order. And I refer to this interview a lot. It's on king5.com, and it was done on the 15th of November 2022. I've played this probably in at least 8 different videos on my channel. Oops, that's not it. Hold on. I'm trying to get this full screen here.
It's,
Can you first just tell me how you guys are doing?
that's a tough
That
question.
is a tough question.
It's not something you ever expect to hear, ever. Like the call we took from our kids who were there, and you just expect to outlive your kids. Honestly, I don't know. We're just trying to process it. It's not a call that you think that you're going to have to speak with a funeral home directors and the FBI and have it hit national news. I mean, we're more concerned, Ethan was a triplet, and that's a big thing. There's a couple of things. Ethan was a triplet, and that's the most important thing for us because we have these other two kids that are.
Okay, so the important part is coming up. I don't want to cut her off though, because I have great respect for these families.
Very impacted by this, and they need to be lifted up and cared for. And I think the other thing that's important to us is the reason why we've agreed to do this is, number one, you're local. And number two, it's important for us to get Ethan's story out. We don't really want anybody else representing him. And it's hard to have people speaking on his behalf. So we think it's best for us to do this.
And you did say, of course, that he was a triplet, and looking through the pictures you sent, like you said, they seem to be always together. I mean, did they all go to high school and then college together also?
Yeah.
Elementary,
Yeah.
high school, everything, college, they all went to the same university. Yeah, I mean, everything. We travel, we play, we hike, everything we do is all of us together. I mean, we're a pretty tight family.
Did you say that they were the ones that called you about this happening?
All right, I just want to bring up, this is where she directly says that they were found together in the same room.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then are you guys all back together now?
We are.
Yeah, we're in our home in Northern Idaho, our summer home. We're going to be here for a couple days just to regroup a little.
Yeah.
And can you just tell me a little bit about Ethan? I think I was told he was very athletic. I think he played, was it basketball and tennis or basketball? Just tell me a little about his interests. What did Ethan like to do?
Anything.
He'd
You
play
name
anything.
it, he played it, literally. I think we just watched a thing from the university, spike ball champion, volleyball champion. I mean, right? I mean, he just literally would play and do anything. He played club soccer for years. We traveled, all of our kids are athletic, and we traveled every weekend, and he was involved in anything. He just literally, I don't know.
He just loved to play everything.
He did.
All
He
the
loves
sports.
sports. I mean, our love language with him was sports. Like, I literally watched, I follow like NFL football so that I can literally have a conversation with Ethan, because I could, send him a text message, and, that was I don't know, just everything. I don't know, that and country music. I mean,
Yeah.
He's funny. He literally, we were trying to have a conversation really quickly about our favorite memory. We can't come up with one. I mean, he literally lit up every room, everybody. He was friend to all. He was an incredible human. I mean, one of a kind, popular. I mean, not that that matters, but I don't know. I think we believe that if you literally asked anybody in his life, anybody, they would tell you the same exact thing. I mean, I just got an email from his counselor at college, and he just said, I love that kid the minute I met him. He literally walked in my office last week, and it was just simply to say hi. He had a huge smile, the whole, the feeling inside of the office changed just because he walked in. He always had something funny to say. That's been something we've talked a lot about. I mean, he was definitely the comedian of the three kids. He kept us all, I mean, we have the funniest videos of him.
He's the kind of kid that everybody wanted to be around. You know, he was just a good kid
He's a good kid.
that
Kind to all.
didn't deserve what happened.
No. Oof.
And wasn't he going to school to study? There was something to do with sports, wasn't it?
Sports management, I think. I don't know the technical title of it. But yeah, I mean, we told him he should go be a teacher and a coach. I mean, he was incredible the way he worked with kids, and he refereed youth basketball on the weekends in Mount Vernon. I don't know. He touched a lot of people. I mean, it's the amount of support that we've seen so far has been incredible. Right?
Yeah.
Our neighbors, everybody. It's incredible. I mean, we have messages from people that just are like, I knew him and he was incredible. Our daughter knew him, and all she talked about was how great he was. I mean, it's a huge loss. We were at Parents Weekend last weekend with them, and Jim and I left that weekend. And as we pulled out of Moscow, we literally were like, we've done it. We've literally done it as parents. We've created 3 incredible humans that will go on and have something great to offer to this world. Honestly, all 3 of them. We literally had a conversation that we will no longer have to worry about these kids because we did it.
What way, people can support you guys right now?
It's an interesting situation because in all of your hardships in life, whatever you're going through, there's always an out.
Just so you know, just on another note, somebody in the comments had asked, or we mentioned 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I believe it was Devil Doll 666. This is the quote that everybody's talking about. This is the one interview she says that is right here. This isn't what I played it for, but I want to show you guys.
Outcome, like you get through it, right? Like, I don't know, whatever it is. This is something you wake up and you realize it's never going to go away, and it's very different. It's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I can tell you that. We're all.
And I guess
it's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour. I can tell you that. We're all.
And I guess just during this time, like I said, you guys seem very tight knit. Are you just like, what's going forward look like for you? I know that's a hard question right now, but I know it seems like you guys are really there supporting each other through this.
I think one of the first things that, like, when we got Maisie and Hunter, one of the first things, that came to me is that our life has literally taken a left turn, and I don't know how that's gonna affect us, but we will not let this sink us or sink our kids, because if anything, they have to go on and shine Ethan's bright light on their own.
I think that's the questions I have right now, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to add.
Kids, do you want us? Our kids are here watching. Do you guys have anything you want to add? Hunter, Maisie? He was their number 1, and that's going to be a hard loss for both of our kids. Both Maisie and Hunter. I mean, he was kind of each of their number 1. So it's going to be hard just for the 3 of them without him now that they're 2. We've gone from 3 to 2, and it's going to be hard for the 2 kids to figure out how to live life when you've spent 20 years as 3, you know, and now they have to figure out how to be 2 and carry, you know, I don't know. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's important for us. I mean, the reason we've agreed to do this is there's some misinformation out there, and that's been hard for us. And that's why we, as a family, talked about it and agreed to do this, because the things that are being said are 100% not true. There's not drugs involved. There's not some weird love triangle. Ethan stayed the night at his girlfriend's house, who was one of 5 girls who lived in the home. And it's just important that people let the criminal part of it try to work itself out, and that these kids, all of the kids were just really good, great kids. So, I mean, the light of the school, I mean, everybody knew them.
One of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
they were in the same room.
Okay, let's
And I think that one of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
they were in the same room.
One of them, I believe, was his girlfriend was also killed. Is that correct?
Yes, Xana. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
they were in the same room.
And I think that
Okay, so let's stop there, because those are 2 things that just keep coming up. That's only said in one place before the gag order. So I do think that it's good to have, now that you've had this interview, maybe you can refer back to it if you do have this question.